Hello friends and welcome back. This is going to be the second part of a trilogy that I'm doing. I should mention at the start, if you're new and you've clicked on this video, this isn't going to be about my fertility journey and fertility struggles. So if that is you and that is your situation, you might want to click out the video now because it probably won't relate to you. This video is more for my girlies that are in my situation that have never had the chance to try for a baby. It's for the women that have never downloaded a period app, have never tracked their cycle, have never really even worked out when they ovulate what their ovulation window is. Even now, I don't really track my periods. I have a little calendar, and sometimes if I remember, I circle round what days they are. And I almost just forget about my period, and then it appears, or I'll get cramps the day before and I know, oh yeah, I'm gonna have my period again. And obviously, because I'm not with anyone, I'm not bothered about when my period turns up. It's just, if it's there, it's there. And I realise I definitely fallen into the category of child free, not by choice. I don't know what it is at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of content that is pushed my way from women that are married and child free by choice. So the opposite end of the spectrum of me. These are women that have usually been married for a long time and they've always been really resolute that they do not want to have children. Obviously, that's fine. Now, I'm going to be honest, I respect their decision, but I don't really understand it. I don't really understand why you'd go into a marriage and not have children. I mean, you can't really get around it. That's the whole purpose of life, really, isn't it? And again, I hope the people that have had fertility struggles have clicked out of this video. But really, if you just literally take us down to an animal species, our whole point is to procreate, pass on our genes, and then society continues. Whilst I respect their decision, I do not fully understand it. I kind of feel like these people are the loudest people on the internet for some reason. It is a bit, the lady does protest too much. And while I completely understand it, and yet I can see that they're making that video for people in their position that feel that way, in the same way that I'm making this video for people in my situation. I think this is the hardest place to be. I think possibly if you've tried to have a baby and you've tried and you can't, maybe there's some acceptance there. Maybe there's some acceptance that you tried and it didn't work out. And like, I have to accept that I didn't meet anyone. I didn't meet the love of my life. I think in some way, maybe these women, they gain their own kind of acceptance about it, even if it's not happiness. I've really fallen into this bucket now of child free, not by choice. These are women in my situation that tried dating, that wanted to settle, that wanted to get married. Like, I wanted to pretty much get married since I was 25, I would say, and have a baby, but it didn't work out. And possibly the last kind of 2 or 3 people that I was involved with, I would have settled with them. I would have married, but they were commitment phobic men, didn't want to settle. And the funny thing is, I still see these men on Tinder. I just watch their hairlines gradually disappear back on their head. Because at the time, they didn't want to settle. And now they're still looking for someone. And they're not getting any younger either. And I take comfort in that. Like I said in my last video, when I was reading The Handmaid's Tale, it brought up a lot in me. It brought up a lot of emotions of how I have now become a child-free woman, brackets, not by choice. I've entered into the community of, I wanted to have a baby, but I didn't find my husband. These are women that didn't even try. We didn't even try to get pregnant. Honestly, trying to get pregnant these days is a luxury. Getting a house, having a baby is generally reserved for the elites. It's reserved for the elites in society which are wealthy, that have money. I mean, I look at my own circumstances and I think, could I realistically now have a baby? I don't have a fixed abode. I rent in an apartment, so I can't have a baby in an apartment. I can't drag a pram up 2 flights of stairs and you're not allowed to keep a pram in a communal. At the moment, there is no way feasibly for me to have a baby. I generally think having a baby at the moment is reserved for the elites in society that are wealthy, that have money. And it's like they say the birth rate's decreasing, but no shit. No shit, it's decreasing when no one can afford a property. No one can afford to get on the housing ladder. And you literally expect people to go and have children. I now could not have a child. I'm in an apartment block. You're going to get a generation of women like me that are child free, not by choice. We wanted to find someone, we wanted to have a baby, but we found that the men were non-committal. The men didn't want to settle down. It's this pre-apocalyptic world, and in the book, all the men are sterile. All the men are sterile. That's why they have to resort to handmaidens, because the men cannot produce anymore. There's something wrong with their sperm. There's been too many ecological disasters, so all the men are sterile. And that's why they resort to the handmaidens. We have our own kind of crisis of men being sterile, but it's not men being medically sterile. It's men being inert and not wanting to date the women, maybe. And you have to be careful what you watch online, because I watched a whole Diary of a CEO episode and I convinced myself that I was perimenopausal just on this episode. And then I even filmed a whole video about it, about being perimenopausal. And then I did literally a quick Google check before I went to start editing the video and realised, oh, I'm not even perimenopausal. I'm like 10 years too early for that. This is why we need to be really careful about what is put on the internet. A lot of what we see on the internet is not true about pregnancy, about birth rates, about just the decline of society. A lot of it is scaremongering. And I even asked my mum, how old were you when you stopped your periods? And she said 55. And I was so shocked, because from what I'd been seeing on the internet, there seemed to be this emergency episode, birth rate crisis of how women are not having children. But when you look into it, and when I looked into, people were still having babies at work. There wasn't a birth rate crisis in work. People were still having babies. I think in general that is the trend. People are finding their partners later in life now. And I had to accept that I was child free, not by choice. And it was up to me to mute the content that was triggering me, to mute the happy married women that don't want children. With respect, I don't need that on my feed. It's not for me. So if I see that, I mute it, I get rid of it, because I don't want to keep seeing that. And it's like, I don't want to keep seeing people that are married and don't want children. I don't want to see people that are married and have children. As someone in my position, it just winds me up, because I tried to find someone and it didn't work. So then there's the option that some women do. I mean, I'm not in that. I'm not in the situation where I could freeze my eggs, because I don't know if it's too late, but I'm not wealthy enough to freeze my eggs. I was watching something the other day. I'm really into country music, and I like Lainey Wilson. And she was talking about how she's getting married, but she's freezing her eggs. I don't really know if I see the point in that. I think if you're with someone and you're with a partner and you're getting married, why would you not just... Obviously, she's in an exceptional situation because she's a worldwide country star. But I don't understand married women that literally put off childbirth for so long. I kind of think, really, these days, people only get married to have kids. It's not like we get married to have sex. It's not like we get married because people see it sinful. I think these days, you can love someone and not be married to them. These days, people marry predominantly to have kids. I personally don't understand it. I suppose it is triggering. It is triggering for me as a woman that never had that option. I never had the option of sitting down, discussing with a partner, okay, I'm going to come off birth control now and I'm going to start tracking my cycle. I never had that chance. I was never given that chance to try for a kid. I was never given that chance to think, fingers crossed, I hope it works out this month. For me, that option was never available. And that's again why I wanted to make this video, to accept, okay, you're entering into child-free not by choice. And maybe in 10 years' time, it will be permanent. In 10 years' time, it will be a permanent decision of I will not be able to have children, and I'll have to accept that. The thing is, I don't believe in divine timing now. I went through a woo-woo stage of believing in divine timing, believing that my path was created from birth, believing that every scenario that I went through was some kind of initiation and God was testing me, and that I was ultimately going to come out of this Tony Robbins type figure stampeding around the world. I had to realize that if it's not on the cards, it's not on the cards. I tried. This whole series should really be called For Those That Tried. It's for the women that tried. It's for the women that tried to find someone, but it didn't happen. It's for the women that are child free, but it didn't happen. And I just want to close it with this something I saw on Instagram. It was this 70-year-old woman, and it said, because obviously my algorithm, it works out what I post and it thinks, oh, you'll like that. And it was this 70-year-old woman, and she'd never had a relationship, and she found love at 70. And it was all like all these comments, oh, happy, happy you, well done. Honestly, I don't know if I see that as a victory. Someone being unhappy for 70 years and then getting maybe 10 years with someone and dying. I don't know if I want that to be on my feed. It's difficult if you're a woman like me and it never happened for you, because you want that now. You wanted to meet someone at 30 and then go on to have 50 years with them. I generally don't want to meet the love of my life at 70. I feel like that's a waste. I feel like that's a waste of my youth. I feel that's a waste of my sexual energy. And I don't know if I saw this as a victory. I mean, I'm glad that this woman's happy that she found love at 70, but I don't want to be that. And it is hard when you see everyone overtaking you and you're just like, for fuck's sake, seriously. And sometimes I have to admit, I find these women that are married and choose not to have children but make videos about it, I find them really irritating. And I know why it is. I know it's because I'm projecting. I know it's because they had the choice to have children and they chose not to. Whereas for me, there was never any choice. There was never any choice of me just having a child or me being with someone and choosing to have a child. It's as if that choice was like ripped away from me, and I never had that choice, never had the option. And I think it's probably why I find these women so infuriating and triggering, because they had a choice to do that, but they chose not to. I know in myself that I would never entrap a man. I would never just have a child with someone, just have a baby, because I know that's not right and I would never do it morally. That's why I told my other story. To really understand me as a person, you need to understand where I came from, how I was brought up, how I grew up. And honestly, growing up in that kind of environment, generally don't want to have a child unless I'm wealthy. I've decided unless I'm wealthy, I will not have a child. I don't want a child to have the upbringing that I have. And obviously, I love my mum and dad and they did their best for me. But I do not want that for my child. That's why I do what I do, because I don't want a child to grow up like I did. That's why I know I have to be the man and the woman. I have to go out there. I have to earn both incomes. I have to be the man and the female. And that's just how the cards have worked. And I would never be as selfish to just bring a random child into the world using a sperm donor. Would I possibly adopt when I get to 50? I don't know. At the moment, I'm not in a financial enough position to even contemplate it. I can barely look after myself financially, let alone bring a child into the world. This is half the reason why I'm child free, not by choice. There isn't an option. Thanks for watching. Take care.